If you're completely new to video editing, then I really recommend starting your video creation journey with Apple's iMovie. iMovie is free and it comes pre-installed on all iPhones, iPads and Apple computers. iMovie is designed with simplicity in mind, and it makes it one of the most user-friendly video editing platforms available. iMovie is perfect for basic video projects, like home movies, all the way up to professional looking promotional videos. I'm going to be going over everything from how to import media, how to edit clips, and how to add effects, and of course how to export and best settings. In this video, I'm going to be using the desktop version, which is almost identical to the iPhone app. And many of the features in iMovie are common to all editing platforms. So by following this tutorial, you're going to learn how to edit in iMovie, and as well you're going to get a very solid grounding in video editing. And you can take this knowledge and you can use it when learning different editing software. As well, iMovie is almost like a beginner's version of Final Cut Pro. By learning the basics of video editing with iMovie, you can use it as a kind of stepping stone on your way to tackling more complex projects with Final Cut Pro. And don't forget, if you want to take my structured step-by-step courses, you'll find the links in the description of this video. Now, with any editing program, the first thing you need to do is start a new project. When you first open iMovie, you'll find yourself in this page with a big Create New Project button. And at the top here, you've got two tabs, Media and Projects. So the Media tab just allows you to view your available media without actually creating a new project. But to get started with a movie project, click Create New. So now you've got two options, movie or trailer. The trailer option below opens a template for editing a movie trailer. But we're just going to start a regular project, so click Movie. And this is going to open up a new project. So this is the place where you're going to be importing video clips and images. You're going to be cutting them up, and you're going to be arranging them in the right order, adding effects, and then finally exporting it all together as a single video file. And that video file can then be uploaded to YouTube directly, or whatever you want to do with it. Now, before we do any of this fun stuff, we need to import media into the editing program. So the media either has to be on your computer, on the drive, or on an external drive attached to your computer. And preferably one that is fast enough, with a fast enough connection that you're going to be able to use it for editing. The new project you created is now listed in the top left corner. And in this case, it's called My Movie 1. Before we do anything else, it's probably a good idea to change the name of our project so that we can find it easier later. Click on the Projects button top left and then type in a new name. I'm going to call this Beginner's Guide. This takes us back to the first window where we created the project. And you can see now we have a Beginner's Guide project here. And if we click the three dots icon to open up some options for the project, here we can rename the project if we want to at a later date, or we can delete the project and so on. But let's double click the Beginner's Guide project to reopen it. Now you need to locate all the media that you want to edit together to create a movie. And you can add video clips, you can import still images like photos, and as well you can import audio files. And now if the media is in your Photos app on your Mac, then you can click on the Photos icon in the left menu under Libraries. And then you can drag any media from there onto the editing timeline. So if your media is somewhere other than the Photos app, then click the Import Media arrow button. On the left, you can see any locations on your computer where the files might be located. In my case, I have the Macintosh HD, which is just the inbuilt drive of the computer, and then I have two external drives which are connected to my computer. And these are drives that I use for editing all the time. To save time in the long run, when I start a new video project, the first thing I do is create a folder for that project somewhere. Now I've created this one already called Beginner's Guide, which is on the external drive I use for all my YouTube videos. If the project is big enough, I will also create more folders within that folder to make it easier to find things. So if I have, say, 10 media files, then one folder is fine. But if I have over 50 or 100 media files, then it's worth organizing them into separate folders. If I open the Beginner's Guide folder, you can see that I have a few media files here. But now that I've gone to the trouble of organizing my files into a folder, I can just import everything in the folder. And to do that, select the folder and then click Import Selected. Everything in the folder is now added, although you're not going to see the folder here. And another way to do this is just to grab this folder and drag it onto iMovie into the media panel. So I'm actually going to bring in some photos here as well. And you can see that in the media gallery, photos appear with a little camera icon in the corner. So that helps you to distinguish between the two different types of media. Now, audio files don't have thumbnail images here, they're just green. And they've got this yellow strip here, which represents the audio level of the audio on the file. By the way, you can actually record video directly within iMovie using your computer's inbuilt camera, or an added external web camera, for example. Tap the import button at the top. It's the same button that we used before with the down arrow, but in a different place. The option at the top is the webcam of your computer, which is here called FaceTime HD camera. Select that and then click the record button to start recording. I'll just record a couple of seconds, then close the window, and now you can see the video I just recorded has now been added to the media window. On the left, we have thumbnails of all the imported media. If you move your cursor over a thumbnail, you can quickly skim through the clip to preview it in Media Viewer on the right. There's actually different ways to add clips to the timeline. The first and easiest way is simply to drag the clip onto the timeline below. Don't forget that if you want to undo any action, just use the old Command plus Z function. The second way is to click the plus button in the bottom right corner of the thumbnail. You can also add multiple clips to the timeline at the same time. Use the Shift key to select multiple clips, or the Command key to select individual clips, and then just use the plus button or drag them across as before. You can also sweep the cursor over all the clips to select them all. If you have a long clip, you probably don't want to add the whole thing to your timeline. A better idea is to choose a section of that clip first. And to do that, you can simply drag the ends of the thumbnail to select a smaller part of it. And now, when you click the plus button, the clip is going to be trimmed to the selected portion on the timeline. But there's another way which is actually probably quicker. Press down the R button and now sweep your cursor across the thumbnail. And one final way to select a portion of your clip is to move your cursor to where you want the section to start, then press the I button on the keyboard, then move to where you want the section to end and press the O button. So I is in and O stands for out. And you'll find that that works on pretty much all editing systems. And all these methods work for audio files as well. Now we have multiple clips on the timeline. Between each clip is this little block. And this doesn't do anything other than mark the cut from one clip to the next. This is also where the transitions will appear, which we will talk about later. When we want to edit a clip, we usually need to select it first. And to select a clip, just click on it. And the clip is now going to have a yellow border to show that it's selected. At the bottom of each clip, you can see the audio of the clip, if there is any. If we move the cursor over the timeline, we can skim through the whole timeline and we get a preview in the viewer above. To play the timeline, just press the spacebar on your keyboard. To play from a particular position, move the playhead to where you want to play from and press the spacebar. It's pretty simple. Drag the ends of a clip to adjust the size. All the other clips will automatically shuffle along. And this is what's called the magnetic timeline. Whatever you do to your clips, they're always going to snap together, and using a magnetic timeline means that you're not going to get any gaps between video or photos or other media or titles. If you want to move a clip to a different position, just click and then drag the clip. And you're going to see the other clips move aside to make a space for you to drop the clip into. Again, all the clips snap together on the magnetic timeline. So you can just go through your clips, moving them to the right place on the timeline, and then just drag the ends of each clip to adjust the length of each shot. You can use this to fine-tune and get your edit really perfect. And really, there's no reason why you can't just go ahead and edit your whole movie this way. But there's also an option to switch to the precision editor. which looks like this. And this gives you some really useful editing tools. And you can edit your cut points in a more precise way, but we're going to talk about that later. So let's add a music track. I've got one that I've imported already, so I can just drag it onto the timeline. And you can see that it sits below the video track. And any other audio files that you can add more audio files here. You can have a track of spoken voice, and then you could have a track of music underneath it. And you'll notice that an audio file can start anywhere. It's not going to snap to the front like video files do. And that's because obviously you might not want music at the start of your video. You might want to bring it in later in the video. And so this gives you the freedom to start your music wherever you want. Notice that when you place an audio file, you get this little green line attached to the video file above. And this means the two files are now linked. If I move the video clip now, the music goes with it. But what if you want to move this file and you don't want the audio file linked to it? What you need to do then is attach it to another video or photo clip. So to do that, move the playhead to the clip that you want to attach this audio to, press Option and Command at the same time, and then click on the audio clip below the video clip that you want to attach it to. And you can see that that line attaching it to the video is now moved to a different clip. Audio files can be adjusted just like video files by dragging the ends. You can also easily add a fade at the beginning or end of a clip. Hover the cursor over the audio clip and you're going to see a little circle and a dot inside. Click and drag that and it adds a fade. And of course, the further you drag it, the longer the fade is going to be. And as you drag the fade control, you will see above that it tells you how long the fade is in this box. Okay, so now we've covered the real basics of editing in iMovie. So now let's go through some more simple editing tools. When we move our cursor over the timeline to skim through it, we get this long line which indicates where we are in the movie. And this line, as I've already referred to it, is called the playhead. So that's just one thing to remember. And again, all editing systems will have a playhead. Now, if we right click on the clip, we get a menu of things that we can do. If we look down the list, we find split clip. So if we select that, the clip is now going to be split into two clips, exactly where the playhead line is. Notice that on the right, we have the shortcut keys for any action. In this case, splitting a clip is Command B. And if you do spend time editing, you're going to want to learn these shortcuts because it's going to be much quicker and it's going to speed up your editing. Move the playhead to where you want to split the clip, press Command B, and the clip is now split. So much quicker. Another way to trim clips on the timeline is to press down the R key. And while you're holding it down, drag across a clip over the section you want to keep. Now, right-click on the clip and choose Trim Selection to remove everything except the area that you selected. There's a few more useful actions here. We have Freeze Frame. If we select that, we can freeze the motion of the clip briefly. And you can see that the clip expands and it adds this still image at the position of the playhead. Detach Audio removes the audio track from the clip and adds it to the timeline below. For example, you might not want the audio that's on the clip and you don't want to hear it in the video, in which case use Detach Audio and then just delete the audio by selecting it and pressing the Delete key. Trim to Playhead cuts off the front of the clip at the position of the playhead. Show Clip Trimmer shows you the whole clip so that you can see what you've cut off. And now you can drag the ends as before to adjust the clip. But if you put the cursor in the center of the clip, you get this little movie strip icon. And now you can keep the clip the same size on the timeline, but you can move it forwards and backwards to show a different part of the clip. So let's say you're happy with the timing of the clip, but you actually want a different part of it. So at the moment, this clip that I've got is showing a London street, but I want to cut to the part where the bus goes past, which doesn't happen until the end of the clip. So I can just slide this along so that now the bus appears exactly where I want it to. Now zooming in and out of the timeline allows us to switch between the bigger picture or getting close up for the smaller details. On the right above the timeline, this slider allows us to do that. And notice that when you zoom out far enough, the clips on the timeline all become one size, but they haven't actually changed length in terms of the sequence. But iMovie likes to make sure that you see the thumbnail of each clip, so it sort of has a minimum size for each clip on the timeline. Another way to remove the audio from a clip is simply to adjust the volume of the audio to 0. To do this, move the cursor over the clip, and you can see there's a line at the bottom near where we can see the audio level. Move the cursor over this line until you see these two up and down arrows. Then drag the line down until it says 0%. So this is how you adjust the volume of the audio attached to a video clip. And if it's too quiet, you can increase the volume here instead. The same goes for audio clips. You can drag the audio level line up and down. And you're going to see the graphic of the audio level move as you adjust the volume. And if you see red, that means the audio is probably clipping and you might hear a kind of distorted sound. So it's probably something to avoid. Now, this time I'm going to add a clip of me talking to the camera. Plays on the timeline, no problem. But when I listen back, the music is too loud at this point. Because I really need it to go quieter when I'm talking so people can hear me. And the professional name for this is audio ducking, because the audio of the music ducks lower when the voice comes in, and then it kind of pops back up again when the voice ends. And iMovie has a feature which lets you do this automatically. Select the clip with the talking, and now look above the preview window. You've got this row of buttons. Click on the audio button, and now toggle this switch on where it says lower volume of other clips. Now look back at the timeline, and you can see that where the talking clip is, the music track now ducks down and then back up again. And it's going to do this to any other audio tracks other than the audio or video clip that you selected. And you can also adjust how much it ducks down here by using the slider. So just play around with that until you get a balance between the background effects and music and the talking voice that you're happy with. In the previous lesson, we asked us... Now, it's usually a good idea to occasionally view your edit full screen, because when we're using this little preview window, mistakes can go unnoticed because, it's too small and you didn't spot it. Tap the full screen button in the bottom right corner of the preview panel, and the video is automatically going to play here from the playhead position. You can also change the size of the timeline, which is slightly different from zooming. Click Settings next to the Zoom slider, and here you will find a slider for clip size. Like Zoom, this isn't going to change the edit or anything, it's just going to change how you view the timeline. So far we've only seen one track of video, but you can actually add a second track, which is useful for adding things like B-roll or maybe photos over your main track of video. Find the clip or photo that you want to add and drag it down, and then drop it above the main timeline where you want it to appear. And this will then show up on top of the video below it. And notice that, like with the audio file, a line attaches it to the clip below. And this time it's a blue line. And again, they're now linked. And if we move the clip below, it takes this B-roll clip with it. Let's try adding a photo. Drag it down, and then we press play. And you can see that when it cuts to the photo, it has automatically added a little zoom into the photo. So I didn't actually add this. iMovie just does this by default unless you tell it not to. And interestingly, it actually takes into account the shape of the photo as well. So that photo was captured in landscape orientation. But if I choose a photo that was shot in a vertical orientation, the animation now sweeps down from the top and kind of zooms in a little. And that's actually pretty cool, because normally if we want these animations, we have to add them manually using keyframes, and it takes a bit of time. So I actually wish that more editing programs did this, or at least, had the option. You can remove this or change the animation, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. By default, a new clip or photo will automatically fill the screen. In other words, it's just going to cut to this new media as if it was just next along in the timeline. But there's different options for how we display video or photo overlays. On the right, above the preview window, we have a row of buttons. So we've already looked at the audio button. Now this first button is for overlay settings. So click that, and by default, it will say cutaway here. Click that to open more options. So now we have green, blue screen, So if you've got some kind of green screen or blue screen clip, you can use that. We've got split screen, so that just divides the two clips above and below on the timeline to each half of the screen. And then we've got picture in picture. If we choose picture in picture, the overlaid image no longer fills the screen. If you grab it in the middle, you can move it around. The purple circles on each corner can also be dragged to resize it. Next along, we can choose how this media shows up when it first arrives on the timeline. So by default, it just fades in, but you can adjust the length of the fade. So if you put this to 0, then there'll be no fade, it'll just pop up. And there's 2 other animation options there that you can also play around with, see if you like them. So you can also add a border, and you can change the color of that border. And as well, you can add a drop shadow. And so these 3 things help to separate the overlay from the media beneath if you want to do that. So this photo zoom in animation that gets automatically applied is actually called the Ken Burns effect, named after the American documentary maker who kind of established it as a way of making still images more interesting in a movie. A completely still image can be a little bit boring to look at, but a subtle zoom in can add intrigue and also help to engage your audience. Click the cropping button above the preview window. By default, style for a video clip is set to fit, which just expands the video to fill the screen. But if you add a photo, this will be Ken Burns by default instead. So click on that, and now you will see that we have 2 boxes, one for the start framing and one for the end framing. We can move these boxes and adjust the framing to customize the effect for our photo. Let's say that I have an old photo and I want to zoom into the faces slowly. If I move the cursor over the corner of the end framing, you can see I get 2 arrows. Now click to select the end frame and then drag to resize. We can also click and drag in the middle to move the whole frame, and you can see that we get this yellow arrow which shows us the direction of the animation. If you actually want to reverse the start and end frames, just click the double arrow button in the middle here. And these final 2 buttons just rotate the image 90 degrees. What if we're not happy with the way our video clip is framed and we want to reframe it? Or what if we want to focus on a different part of the image? Select the clip that you want to reframe. Now click the cropping button above the preview window. So this actually works for both overlay clips and photos, as well as the media on the main track. When this is set to fit, there's nothing that we can do. But when we select crop to fill, we get a border around the image. And now we can drag the corners to reframe the shot. When we play the timeline, the clip now has this new framing. But that's not all. We can actually animate this framing as well. Let's say that I want to zoom in on this sign which says Ezra's, which is the name of the restaurant. Click Ken Burns, and now I can choose a start and end frame as we saw in the previous section. So now when I play this timeline, the video is now zooming in on this sign. If we want to add a simple crossfade, we just right click a click and then select cross dissolve. And this is going to add a fade at both ends of the clip. And you can see this fade transition where the block was between the clips. Double click the transition on the timeline, and now we can change the duration. So it's 1 second by default. If you want the transition to be slower, change this to a bigger number. So for example, 2 seconds, and then click apply. To have these kind of transitions, you do need spare frames at the ends of both clips to create the cross dissolve. So if it says that there's not enough frames, we can just drag the ends of the clips to add more spare frames. Click apply, and then when we play back the timeline, the fade is now twice as slow. There's loads of other preset transitions. So if we look above the media window and click where it says transitions, you can now see all these transitions, and you can preview a transition like other stuff by moving your cursor over it, and then just drag the one that you want onto the block between the 2 clips. And again, just double click the transition to adjust the duration. We can change the speed of a clip to create slow motion effects or other effects. Select the clip, then click the speed button above the preview window, which looks like a speedometer. If you want to slow your clip down, then there's different ways to go about this. The first way is to click where it says normal and choose slow from the drop-down menu. And now choose how much you want to slow it down. Let's say that you have a 60 frames per second clip and you want to slow it to 30 frames per second, in which case choose 50%. If your clip is 120 frames per second and you want to slow it to 30 frames per second, then choose 25%. What if your clip is 60 frames per second and you want to slow it to 24 frames per second? In that case, you need to choose custom and then you need to set this to 40%. When you click the speed button, notice that the clip now has a grey circle and a grey bar at the top of the clip. So you can actually grab this and drag it left and right to stretch out or shrink the clip. And if I stretch it out, that means I'm slowing it down. And if I shrink it smaller, that means that I'm speeding it up. And you're going to get a tortoise icon in the middle if the clip is slowed down, and you're going to get a hare icon if it's speeded up. So that makes it easy just to quickly see if there's been a speed change and what type of speed change there has been applied to a clip. Adding text and titles is pretty simple in iMovie. Click the Titles tab above the media window. A lot of these titles are animated, so you can skim the title thumbnails in the browser to see how they move. Drag your chosen title onto the timeline where you want it to appear. Again, it connects to the clip on the main timeline, like overlays and audio files. So this means that you can end up with lots of items all linked together. If I move the main clip here, they all move together. Alternatively, drag your chosen title down and place it over a video clip. And now you get a white box either at the start or the end, or all of it, depending where you position it. If you drop it onto the start of the clip, the title duration will automatically be set to last for the first third of the clip. If you drop it into the middle, it's going to last for the whole clip. And if you drop it on the end, it will last for the final third of the clip. Another way to add text is to place the playhead where you want the text, and then just double-click on the text template. If you double-click on the title on the timeline, you open up the text editor in the preview window. So now you can type in the text of your title, or you can copy and paste it. Another way to edit text is to select the title on the timeline, and then click the title button above the preview window. Now you can change the font, you can change the size of the font, you can make it bold, you can add an outline to the text, and also you can change the color. So you can move the title wherever you want it to appear on the timeline. You can also adjust the length in the same way that you adjust other media by dragging the ends. What if you just want a black screen with a title on it? So then all you do is drag the title onto the empty space on the timeline. You can also place it between clips as well, like when you add video clips. And the other clips are going to shuffle along to make space. You can even add transitions to these titles like you do with video clips. But now, what if you want a different color background? Click the Backgrounds tab above the Media window. Below, you've got a number of different backgrounds to choose from, some of which are animated. So we can drag the background onto the timeline and then place the title onto it, just like with a video clip. Unfortunately, we can't actually move the text around in the frame, which is a bit of a shame. Above the backgrounds, iMovie provides various maps. Some of them are still images and some of them are animated. Pretty easily, you can create one of those kind of map animations where you see like a journey from point A to point B. So just drag a map down onto the timeline. And now above the preview window, you've got this map settings button. So just type in the location where you're starting from, and then type in the second location where you're going to end your journey. And now the map is going to animate this journey. And if you click the bendy arrow in the middle, it will actually reverse the direction of the route. iMovie provides some basic color grading tools, as well as some preset filters that you can apply to your videos. Above the preview window, there's 3 buttons which can be used to adjust the color of a clip. Select the clip that you want to adjust. The first 2 buttons are color balance and color correction. Then at the other end is the button for filters. Click color balance, and if you want iMovie to do the work for you, just click auto below. Match color allows you to adjust the color of the selected clip using the color palette of another clip. So this is quite useful for getting the clips on the timeline to have a similar look, which is pretty important for making your sequence more visually cohesive. White balance allows you to correct the white balance of your clip. So click it and then click on an area in the frame which you know should be white. And if there isn't any white in the frame, then you can't really use this technique. Now, if you find that the skin tones of people in the clip look a bit off, they look a bit odd somehow, then you can use skin tone balance. All you do is find a part of the frame that shows a well-exposed part of someone's face or skin, and then just click on it. Skin tones should then be automatically corrected in the clip. Click the color correction button, and here you're going to find 3 tools for adjusting the color. They are very basic, but pretty useful nonetheless. The slider is what Apple calls the multi-slider control. And you can use this multi-slider to adjust shadows. You can adjust brightness, contrast, and highlights. The little left slider, the black slider, adjusts shadows. The middle grey slider adjusts brightness. And either of the half moon sliders adjusts contrast. The second slider adjusts saturation. And the last slider adjusts temperature from warm to cold. So if you just simply want to add a little bit of warmth to the image, you can adjust this up slightly. Or if you wanted to cool it down a bit, you can go in the opposite direction. The final button for changing the color is the filter button. Select a clip, then click the filter button, then click where it says none, and this opens a panel of filters. Move your cursor over the filters to preview them. Click on the filter to apply it to a clip. You can also use this slider here to adjust the strength of the filter. And you're also going to find audio filters here, which you can apply to the audio of the video clip or to a separate audio file. And it works in exactly the same way. You just move the cursor over the effect to preview it. If you want to apply a preset filter to your entire project, click Settings in the top right of the timeline. Click where it says None and then choose a filter. And now all the clips on your timeline should have this filter applied. Now, if you just want to let iMovie have a go at fixing the image quality and the audio quality of a clip, you just tap this little magic wand, which is in the top left corner of the preview window. I said I was going to tell you another way of editing your clips on the timeline, and that is by using the Precision Editor. Select a clip and move the cursor over one end of the clip. Double-clicking now opens up the Precision Editor window. You can also do this by going to Window, Show Clip Trimmer. The timeline is now arranged so that you can focus on one particular edit point. Everything ahead of the edit point is above the timeline, and everything after the edit point is below the timeline. And in the middle on the timeline, we just have the edit points lined up. Now you can grab the middle of a clip and slide it back and forth to fine-tune the timing of the edit. And as well, if there's a transition here, you can adjust that too. And you can also move the ends of the clip as before. Now, if you want to switch to a different edit point, you can just click on that point. Another cool thing that you can do here is to extend the audio track beyond the end of a clip. Move the cursor over the audio waveform part of the clip. Now drag the end of the waveform part and you can see that the waveform is extending, but the video part of the clip is staying as it is. So using this method, you can create what's known in the movie biz as J cuts and L cuts. So they're used for various reasons, like helping to smooth over the edit point or to introduce the next section of your scene. It's actually quite a big topic, so we're probably going to cover that in a separate video. Now I think we're probably ready to export our sequence. In the very top right-hand corner is the export button. Click on that to open up the export panel. So we've got 4 options here, but I'm just going to use the one that we're going to use most of the time, which is export file. If we want to change the name of the file we're about to create, we can do that. And below that, we can add a little description. So if you want to change this tag, or maybe you want to add more tags, then you can do that now. And this might actually help you to find it later. For example, if this is a travel video, you could tag it travel, and then any videos that you've tagged travel are going to be categorized together on your computer. Now you can choose whether to export video and audio or just the audio. And after that, we can choose the resolution. So normally I choose 4K here, unless I'm doing this for a platform that limits the resolution that you can upload to something lower like HD, for example. Quality is your bitrate setting. If you choose best here, you're going to export a ProRes file. And if you choose custom, you can choose your own bitrate. Basically, bitrate has a really big effect on the quality of your video, but higher bitrates also make your files bigger. So you do need to balance here between high bitrate and manageable files. For example, I usually export my videos for YouTube at 4K and 60 megabits per second, but I am kind of overdoing it, and that's just to make sure that YouTube gives me the best quality. And as you move this bitrate slider, you can see the estimated file size of your exported video, and it does make quite a big difference where you set this. But if you choose to export in ProRes, you're going to get very big files. And the only real reason to export in ProRes is if you intend to do more work on the video on another platform, for example. If you're just uploading it to YouTube, while that platform does accept ProRes, it is probably overkill unless your video is absolutely kind of crazy quality. And anywhere, YouTube is still going to compress it down to a regular video format. Now you can choose to compress faster or with a better quality here. So that's just going to depend on how much of a rush you're in. If you're not in any hurry, you may as well just choose best here. So what's this box allow export segmentation? What this does is, if you check this, then iMovie is going to send segments of your video to available media engines for simultaneous processing. And really this only affects you if your video is about 3 minutes or longer, and it's just going to enable iMovie to speed up the export time. So that's a pretty complete guide to iMovie. And while it isn't the most feature-rich editing system, it certainly isn't feature-poor either. Using a simple editing system means that you can focus on the most important thing, which is editing. And if you master this system, you're going to be well prepared to take the step up to Final Cut Pro or other more complex systems.